So Senator Mike Lee, who is despised by the establishment in Utah because he beat them, who is despised by the establishment in the United States Senate, and his father, Rex Lee, was appointed by none other than Ronald Reagan, yes, as the Solicitor General of the United States at the Justice Department, where he served for several years, his father. And Mike Lee himself was a law clerk to the great Supreme Court Justice Sam Alito, who worked in that very office at the Justice Department when I was at the Justice Department. These are good men, smart men, principled men, men of the law who seek to uphold the Constitution. And for that, they're trashed. But we're going to defend Mike Lee. We're going to promote Mike Lee. And I want you to hear why. Here's some of what he said in the only speech that mattered last night. They had some Republican woman from the House, something or other, three names, and it ended in Rogers. Who the hell is this? And I had to shut that off. It was obvious that speech was written by Boehner's office, full of platitudes. I mean, come on, guys. Come on, gals. You can do better than this. Hell, you got elected to Congress. Can't you put three sentences together? Apparently not. Here's Mike Lee. Cut one. Go.
This inequality crisis presents itself in three principal forms. Immobility among the poor, who are being trapped in poverty by big government programs. Insecurity in the middle class, where families are struggling just to get ahead, and they can't seem to do much more than that. And cronyist privilege at the top, where political and economic insiders twist the immense power of the federal government to profit at the expense of everyone else.
Perfect. There is no reason why we should live in the false, phony box that the left has created for us, that the establishment and the ruling class have created for us. That's not our box, that's their box. And what he's saying here is, wait a minute, you talk about inequality, immobility among the poor, because they're trapped in poverty because of big government, insecurity in the middle class where families are struggling just to get ahead, and cronyist privilege. We talk about all these things. At the top, where they use political and economic insiders to use the power of government for themselves. Now, this is beyond the academic discussion of inequality, which I often discuss here with you, how absurd even the entire argument is. But that said, this is practical politics, and he's making excellent points. Cut two. Mike Lee. Go.
But where does this new inequality come from? From government. Every time it takes rights and opportunities away from the American people and gives them instead to politicians, bureaucrats, and special interests.
Stop right there. This is exactly what I said on C-SPAN on, what is it now, January 5th, something like that, in my 3-hour interview there, which was really one of all the media I've ever done, hundreds of cable shows, hundreds. I think that was the finest interview, the 3 hours on C-SPAN. I really do. That and the 1 hour in August on the Hannity show discussing the Liberty Amendments on the Fox News channel, because they were long formats where we could have good discussions without mindless interruptions. But this is exactly right. This is exactly right. He's right on. Go.
Inequality, real inequality, is trapping poor children in failing schools to benefit bureaucrats and union bosses. It's penalizing low-income parents for getting married or getting better jobs. It's guaranteeing insurance companies taxpayer bailouts if Obamacare cuts into their profits. Inequality is blocking thousands of middle-class jobs in the energy industry as a favor to partisan donors and radical environmental activists. Inequality is denying viable unborn children any protection under the law, while exempting unsanitary late-term abortion clinics from basic safety standards. It's denying citizens their right to define marriage in their states as traditionally or as broadly as their diverse values dictate. It's the federal government hurting rural communities, especially in the West, by controlling and mismanaging public lands. It's changing laws without congressional approval and spying on American citizens without constitutional authority. And, of course, Obamacare.
This is genius, because what he's done here in about, a minute and 15 seconds, is he's turned the tables. He has not accepted the federal Leviathan as the beginning and the end of this country, as so many of the Bushies do in their columns and in their arguments. No. You want to talk about inequality? then let's talk about inequality and what the source of it is. You know, apart from human inequality that exists as a fact, as a matter of nature, what he's talking about here is people who cannot get ahead or would be more likely to get ahead, to progress, to evolve, but for government trampling their liberties, but for government obstructing them. This is what I mean. Do not accept the box that they stick us in. Step outside of it. Characterize them for who they are and what they're doing, and explain who we are and what we want to do. And he did that in 1 minute and 15 seconds. And this was not played on the networks, as far as I know, and it's gotten very little attention in broadcasting, TV, or radio, except by me now. More of Mike Lee responding to Obama last night. Cut 3, go.
To be fair, President Obama and his party did not create all of these problems. The Republican establishment in Washington can be just as out of touch as the Democratic establishment. However, tonight, as on numerous occasions of late, the president's lofty rhetoric ignored the fact that his administration continues to leave poor and middle-class families further behind, while he and his allies insist that the real problem is inequality itself.
Exactly. Notice how he's redefining it. He's not accepting the definition imposed on us. He's not accepting the characterization of us by them. Saying, wait a minute, you're the problem. More Senator Mike Lee, cut 4, go.
I believe we need to do what Americans have always done, come together and press for positive change. Protesting against dysfunctional government is a great American tradition, going back to the original Tea Party in Boston about 240 years ago. Americans have a natural instinct to stand up and speak out when they know something's wrong. In 1773, Americans had simply had it with a London-based national government that had become too big, too expensive, and far too intrusive. It's important to note, however, that had the founding generation stopped at just protesting against the kind of government Americans did not want, the Boston Tea Party would have been little more than a footnote in history. At most, it would have been remembered as just one more futile protest against an abusive national government. Fortunately for all of us, those early patriots moved on from Boston and moved past their protest against the government they didn't want. They marched forward on a road toward the kind of government they did want.
Exactly. Exactly. Now, I might say this. Maybe there needs to be a little more protest and rallying. But his point is well taken. We also have to turn that into governing. And this is where some of us have a disagreement. I don't mean with Mike Lee. I'm just saying some of us, you know, the rhetorical us. I don't believe it's enough just to elect more conservatives to Washington, although I believe it's essential. But there's a harder part to this. And because it's harder, because it takes courage, it's dismissed sometimes by talk show hosts, by TV commentators, and by others. Because they're just not capable of getting their heads around this or embracing it, or they have other foibles. But you get it. You understand it. It's one thing to elect more conservatives into a governing system that has become unhinged from the social compact, that has become unhinged from our Constitution. And we need to elect more conservatives into that system to try and limit the damage. But it's the unhinged part that needs to be addressed as well. We need to get our constitutional system back, not just elect more conservatives into this system. Because this system is no longer a federal republic. It's no longer a representative republic. It's no longer a constitutional republic, as I've said. I don't know what it is, but it's none of those. So we need to act before it's too late. So yes, we need to elect more conservatives in primaries, in general elections. We need to fight those who resist this effort and throw in with the lobbyists and the corporatists and the U.S. Chamber of Crony Capitalism who push things like amnesty, wildly push things that are so completely absurd, who refuse to stand up to tyranny that stares us in the face, who are perfectly happy with the power that they have when they have chauffeurs driving them around, and you're honorable, and your speaker, and Mr. Minority Leader, and all the rest. That's them. That's not us. So, yes, we need to address them and elect as many of the Mike Lee, Ted Cruz, Rand Paul, and others as we possibly can. And I've left out many. But we also have to address the constitutional issue here, which very few want to address at the federal level, because they are not intending to change this design that they've created and are still creating.